Um, Thanks for joining us to another episode of Strength of Being Dyslexic in Golf. Last week you saw Ben, and it was very interesting to see his journey and his path. But today we've got Craig. He's part of Leadbetter Group and is a PJ professional golf coach. Leah's good friend, a work colleague, or because both Leah and Craig are both Leadbetter certificated coaches. So, and I think that's how they got introduced each other through that. So we would really like to know Craig's story. So take it away, Leah.
Yeah, so we're just really reiterating what you just said. I've only recently got to know you, Craig, just via the Leadbetter family, as we call it, which has been awesome. And then you reached out to me last week, I think, saying how much you loved the previous podcast and how much you said that dyslexia has actually, with your golf has helped you a lot, and wanted to share your story. So pretty much over to you. Just fill us in. Background, being when you were just diagnosed, and how it's kind of played into your golf career.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, first off, thanks for having me on. That's awesome. I feel very privileged. But no, yeah. So when I was back in primary school, obviously I was really struggling, and they couldn't really figure out what was wrong, or why I wasn't achieving the grades that other kids were achieving, and I really felt put out. So getting my head around that as a young kid was a bit, I don't really know what's happening. I don't really know what's wrong with me. So that made me concerned, but it also made my parents concerned because, they didn't know either. So the school kind of like dived deeper into more of myself and gave me a few tests. And anyway, after probably about a year of doing it, they said, look, we think you're dyslexic. That was like kind of a bit of a bombshell to my family because, 20 years ago, no one really had a clue how to deal with it, or they just didn't know. So there were no like teaching mechanisms of, oh, well, how do we deal with it? Or how does a dyslexic person learn? Like there was nothing. So although that I was, said, oh, you're dyslexic, I was just going down the same path as everyone else. And it didn't help, I was just, doing the same as I was before when they told me I was. Do you know what I mean? It made no difference to how I was doing. It was crazy, and I was getting more frustrated the more that I was doing. And I think that plays a huge part in it, because then you start getting angry yourself, and it's just a downhill roll. That it's just.
Bit of a spiral, isn't it? I mean, there's been cases before with dyslexic children, particularly more with boys. They start misbehaving, and it's not because they're naughty, it's because they're frustrated and they don't know how to channel that frustration or ask for the help, or the help they're receiving isn't, suited to what they actually need. I know, being honest, were you a little bit naughty when you were at school? Maybe acting out?
A little bit. I was just a little bit. But I was always, and see, this is where golf really helped me. I started playing golf when I was 6, and that was the age that I got diagnosed being dyslexic. And golf really taught me, I was socially really awkward when I was, 6. Because I just didn't know how to communicate. I was always put on the spot with a conversation, and nothing would come to my brain. I just couldn't process anything. So the more and more I played golf, the more and more I was playing with adults in a 4-ball, and you're with them, you're stuck with them 4 hours. Then you have to make conversation. So that really brought me out of my shell and made me feel so much more comfortable in interacting with someone who I don't have a clue, and then I could find out more about them. It's just learning as you go. And then obviously my parents picked up on that, and they were like, wow, 6 months down the line and he's kind of just chatting away to some guys on the golf course. And it's just like, we've never seen it. And it must be to do with golf, and like the camaraderie, You know, I was really lucky to be a member of a golf club where the camaraderie was really good. You know, there was no judgment. The juniors were always super nice. You know, and I feel like that's something that's missing nowadays. You know, everyone's super judgmental, and it just brings you down further. You know, we need to kind of like stick together and do what we're doing here, like being open about it.
Definitely. With like social media, I do feel like there's an extra added pressure for children to perform. Like,
Yep.
it's all good intentions when parents post, oh, my kid's got an A-star in this paper, and you know,
Yep.
for dyslexic children that might not happen because they're still finding their feet or learning how to process information. And if they're seeing that, then that can start to have a massive effect. But what we're not doing is necessarily praising them for the good things they're good at. So obviously yourself was the golf, you know, it should have been, hey, Craig, look how well he's doing with the golf, or hey, look how well Jimmy is doing at actually talking and communicating with adults. I think that's kind of almost more valuable than having an A on a test. Because we know as golf pros, one of our biggest assets now is being able to talk and communicate with clients, because if we don't, well, our diary is going to be very empty. So there's definitely a correlation between kids being exposed to sport, not just golf, but sport in general, and then their ability to go on and communicate and process information more efficiently. Did you find that once you started playing golf, you started to do better at school?
100%, definitely. Yeah, it just, as I said, it just brought my confidence out. Especially, I said, when I was 6, playing all the little junior events, traveling around England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, just playing golf, and just playing a lot of golf. And it just brought my confidence out. You know, I would have the confidence to put my hand up in class and not be afraid to get an answer wrong. You know, where before I'd be like, I'm probably not going to get this right, so I'm probably not going to answer. And then someone would get the answer right, but I wouldn't learn why I got it wrong. And that was what frustrated me, because, you know, I'm there to learn. You know, it's just, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. That's massive, and that's actually a big lesson in the Leadbetter stuff and in certification about failure, and actually how you need to expose the juniors to failure, because that's when they start to learn the best, find the sweet spot of learning. They fail at the task, and then that's when they're able to ask the question of why, and then you're able to find the solution. And I guess I always feel like golf has a lot of parallels to life. With golf, playing golf, you can't help but fail when you play this stupid game. Like, literally from day one, you will have a time where you don't hit a good shot, you miss a putt, you duff a chip. But what you start to learn very quickly is that you can recover. And the bigger picture, the whole 18 holes, based on that one poor shot, doesn't mean the whole 18 holes is ruined. And that's kind of like school life. Just because you flunk out on one test, it doesn't mean that your education is ruined. Yep. And I think that was always the feeling I had at school, is if I failed a spelling test where you're on the spot, got 20 seconds to spell out a word, obviously I didn't do it, but I suddenly in that moment felt like I could never do anything. But that is completely beyond the truth. That it couldn't be further away from what life is actually like, especially now with technology. I'm constantly just talking into the Siri, how'd you spell this, how'd you spell that? And you know what, I don't care, because at the end of the day I get the spelling and then I can move on with the rest of my day. So it's that's reality. We found a solution to get around that problem. I mean, we've discussed this a lot, haven't we, Neil, with technology helping us.
The one thing I'm noticing is that what Craig was saying, it's a very common trait where we've had to learn early on the sort of grit and the grind, what we have to sort of, and so it's a sort of a common trait, some common personality trait for dyslexic people, is that we kind of are born with this, well, we had to learn early to grind it out to get where we want to get to, whereas other people will take a bit quicker, whereas we have to have more concentration, more thought to get where we want to get to. Would you agree with that, Craig?
Yeah, definitely. To jump on that point, for me personally, and I suppose I can probably speak for most dyslexic people out there, but I feel like I have to work twice, maybe 3 times as hard as anyone else just to get equal. let alone to get past them, just to get equal. And that doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, when I'm out there grinding and when I was playing my best golf, I was out there when nobody else was. You know, I was out there practicing when it was cold. I was out there practicing when it was snowing, you know, and I knew I had to do it just to beat my opponents.
Yeah.
So it was a case of,
doesn't it? It comes naturally, doesn't it? Where you've had to, you know, had to go through that amount of effort you have to do. You do that with everything now, don't you? You know.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even going through like a new business venture right now, and I'm working like 24/7. Like, I mean, even down to my time management, like that's become better because I know I have to be organized, otherwise it's not going to get done. So yes, I mean, even going back in school, you know, I was over the moon getting C's and D's, over the moon. Like I was like, I'm happy, you know. All my friends were like getting A's and B's and, you know, doing all their stuff, and I've got a brilliant group of friends. Like they are awesome, and they were super happy for me because they knew the struggles that I was going through. And yeah, like I was over the moon with C's and D's. You know, I went on to go get a sports science and like national diploma at college, which was something that I enjoyed doing. You know, and I find being dyslexic, you need something that you enjoy, and that's how you learn best.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's the point on the grades. It's just a grade, but for you, that was a big victory, and it's enabled you you got the grade that you needed to enable you to go to the next step. Right. So that's just one small step in the big picture, and I think that's kind of the point. And you've made a very you've hit on something true there about your friendship group. I think having the right friends is important, and that's just general. If you've got any toxic friends, then they're just going to be no good for you. I never forget in primary school there was one girl who was exceptionally clever, and she was just very mean when I failed a test. It wasn't like a banter mean, it was like, you are stupid. So very early on, I had to detach myself from that. Otherwise, it was just going to bring me down. Whereas my friends I have now from golf, actually, my best friends from golf, still to this day, we laugh about it. We laugh about my dyslexia constantly, but it's in a really constructive way. So, but when I do something well, they are there and they're very proud. So it's having the right friends around you. Support network is absolutely huge. It's having enough to laugh at it yourself with it, but not crossing that line of being really toxic. I don't know if you've ever had experiences like that, you two, with particular people and friends that you've had to go, no, this is too much. I've got to go away from this.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely just got, you know, a handful of friends that, you know, I can rely on and I can trust. So yeah, I can definitely vouch for that point for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'd like to hear a bit more about, you know, your golf career. So we've covered very much, you know, obviously your school backgrounds, friendship groups. So how have you found your journey in golf with dyslexia, going from PGA to Leadbetter to playing? What would you say for that?
So yeah, definitely through my junior career, there was a lot of difficulties, you know, and, you know, I don't want to be big-headed, but as a junior, my career really was great. You know, it was really successful. I won, you know, over probably 55 junior events. You know, I was playing really solid golf, but what people forget about is the preparation that needs to go into that before I even get there. And this is something that most people might not think about. But again, being dyslexic, when you get put on the spot to do something, it's like it just doesn't come. So it's like I had to prepare a speech for just in case if I won. And that's something that 99% of people won't have to do. But I had to prepare a speech just in case I did win, and they say, all right, speech. Yeah, you know, probably nothing's going to come out. Thanks for coming, off you go. You know, have a safe journey home. But no, like I had to prepare for that speech. You know, I had to feel like I was prepared for that day, just so I could play well.
Yeah, being organised.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so in some ways, doing that, you're almost self-fulfilling your potential prophecy. So because you're planning ahead, going, right, I better write my winner's speech just in case I That's although you're doing it for maybe necessarily a different reason. Subconsciously, you're almost prepping yourself to go out there, play well, and win. So then you're ready to do your speech that you've kind of prepared. So that's kind of that's an interesting thing, actually.
Yeah, like I never really thought about that until I actually met Dr. Bob Winters out in Champions Gate, and I told him this story, and he was like, "That's probably why you won so much of that time, because you was already preparing yourself to win." But at that time, I had no idea that I was doing it, and maybe, maybe not knowing was good. One of them things where you think you don't really know what you're doing, but it just turns out. So junior career was really good. I had a lot of good golf friends that kind of stuck by me, knew where I was. Then I'd get into like county golf, which was great. Again, learning wasn't, it was kind of just told what to do instead of shown what to do. So that, I think, again, needs to change. And that's really where I found myself, I think I'm just going to turn pro early and see where it goes. Because, Walker Cup was just too much of a stretch for me. I felt that, I want to get experience playing in professional events, picking up a little bit of money here and there, and just trying to build up the ladder. So I did that. I found a really good coach that understood that I need to kind of see the work that I was going through and, understand what I was doing. Because I would even say to my coach, look, show me what to do for 15 minutes of this lesson, and then for half an hour, go have a cup of tea. Pretty exactly like what Paul Lawyer was saying.
Yeah, I was going to say that literally
is exactly how I was with my first golf coach, because I felt uncomfortable him standing there watching me, and it felt like, again, like school, I felt like he was judging me if I'd done something wrong. And that really impacted me throughout my playing career. If I made a mistake, is that not going to hurt? And it does, it does, until you can have the experiences to not let that happen. I think, again, being dyslexic, that's just another way of learning how to deal with it. You've had this throughout your entire life, and you just learn how to just block that stuff, because it doesn't even matter anymore. Everyone makes mistakes, and that's what people have got to learn. Like I see something the other day, I thought this was brilliant. If you've done the 9 times table, right, and you put 1 times 9 is 7, but the rest of the 11 were correct, I guarantee you 100% of people will pick on that. But yet you did the rest of the 11 correct. They pick on the one thing and blow it out of proportion, yet you did 11 things right. And that's what we should be saying. Look, all right, you've done that wrong, correct it. But look, that's it, it's perfect. But we just pick on that one niggly bit, and it, especially, again, being dyslexic, it's really hard to overcome that one thing, and it affects you in later life a lot.
Yeah, the confidence goes a lot, doesn't it? One thing I noticed when you were talking about when you're working with your coach is that, I think, would you at an early stage you kind of knew how you learned something, how you learnt, if that makes sense. So you got, which is unheard of, apart from Paul Lawrie, you said, but that you got your coach to hit balls and explain to you how you need to hit shots. And I think, I don't know how old you were then, but it sounds to me like you kind of knew how you worked and how you sort of process things at an early stage to maybe get to where you are now. Would you agree? Or?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So I was 14, 15 at the time. So I was still pretty young. But the one thing that my dad always taught me is know who you are and become the best of that person.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
He said that to me throughout. And that always made me think, all right, honestly, the older I got, and I got to that age where I actually kind of understood what he was saying. I didn't fully understand, but I kind of got the gist of where he was going with it. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be a professional golfer. I want to be the best of whatever I can become. So I wonder why when people tell me information, it doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at a few things, and then, you know, I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'll just, you know, watch a few videos. And then the more TV I watched, the more I was picking up on things that people were doing wrong, or, oh, maybe I can implement that into my swing. So I go to my coach and I'd be like, so I saw this on TV the other day, and I saw a Tiger like using his hands or like changing his grip to figure out what kind of shot he wants to play. Can I try that? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then he showed me like videos of like Tiger's grips. Like, so Tiger changed his grip depending on what kind of shot he wants to hit. And I was like, huh, interesting. And that's where I learned, wow, I must be able to see things to learn it, not just have it written down on a bit of paper or for someone to shout orders at me.
Yeah. So very much a visual kind of learner. I'm definitely more of a visual person. So rather see someone demonstrate and then try and copy or mimic rather than a set of instructions lost on me. Or I'm someone who just kind of experiment. So I'll go in and I'll just try a whole bunch of different series of things until I find something that kind of clicks. Which actually, it's kind of a better way of learning, I always feel, anyway. If you're exploring, I think it's like guided discovery, it's labeled. So I do a lot with this with the kids. I'll give them maybe like a little hint, and then they've got to go off and try and work it out. And then if they can't work it out, they've then got to come and ask me, rather than me just step in and be like, right, hold it like this, do it like this. And I think that has been proven a very effective way of learning for anybody, not just anyone with dyslexia, is rather than this old school kind of Victorian, here's the answer, copy it down, memorize it. How effective is that? That depends on how good your memory is. But have you actually learned, or are you just reciting something? I think there's a big difference there, which is why it's so cool that you feel that golf has helped you so much, not just on a confidence level, but it's actually helped you process information, learn how you learn. And I think that's a big point with sport. There's not enough emphasis of how important sport is for children and adults. Like, it's this continuum. When I was doing my certification for Leadbetter Kids, I think it was like the dropout of kids doing sport at age 12 is about 70%. So when kids get to secondary school, basically 70% of them drop out of sport in general. I mean, that is a huge number put down like that. Lots of reason why that's happening, but actually I feel that that's doing a massive disservice to their learning in secondary school. They would probably learn more efficiently if they continued the sport. But very much, I remember going to school, secondary school, and it was very game on, like, look, you're leading up to your GCSEs now, you're in year 7, this is now a journey into GCSEs, all about your grades, because if you don't get your grades, you're going to fail at life, you're never going to do any well, you're never going to do any good. But fortunately, I'm from a sporty family and background, so that was never an option. We were never going to drop sport. And then I fell into golf, and definitely dads and daughters with golf, it was a big deal. So I had that support network. But there's a lot of children who wouldn't have that. They dropped the one thing they're really good at and love, and then just left with this kind of negative connotation of learning. It's interesting. I would love to see the education system put more emphasis on how important sport is. You know, that's how you I'm always, every week I'm talking about the education system and what needs to be a little bit better. The more I talk to people, the more they feel the same. So I think there must be something in that. There has to be.
Definitely. You know, I definitely think there needs to be an improvement made, for sure. You know, and again, like I said, like touching on like the Leadbetter certification, you know, the way that that's set out and the way that we can learn through that certification, I think is fantastic. You know, I was doing a ton of videos talking and explaining, and, you know, I might be talking for like 3 minutes and then get something wrong in that video. So I'd watch it back. I'm like, okay, this was perfect, this was perfect. Oh, you know, that bit was wrong, or, you know, I was slightly out of my positioning, or some little things like, let's do it again. You know, and again, like most people would be like, oh, that's fine, like don't worry about it. But again, being dyslexic and learning, you know, I have to be better. Again, it goes back to working twice as hard as anyone else. You know, I don't want it just to be okay. I want it to be better. I want it to be, You know, I want it to be great. I know I've got the information right. All right, I might have got something wrong, but now I've seen the video and I know where I'm going to go wrong. I'm going to improve on it.
Definitely, that's a really good tip if you are a golf pro coach listening to this. Film yourself coaching or do an instructor video and watch back. You learn so much, and I totally agree. The way they do the certification, it's a learning forum at the end of the day. There's no massive like exam, or even if you have to do a few little case studies, if it's not quite right, instead of them failing you, they just come back with some constructive things of what to add in, maybe drop that. So you have actually learnt from it. It's not a straight like, this is completely wrong, Leah. It's never ever wrong. They're like, there's no wrong answer really, but I would perhaps add this or look at this to add value to that, which is great. I think that's kind of the way learning should go. I always feel like the education system, when you come out of it, you don't necessarily have like a grade, but you have a certificate that says you've completed your education, and those who are really naturally academically gifted could go on to external testing to get their A grades. I think that would be a far more constructive way of dealing with kids going through education, because at the end of the day, if you've got an E in your GCSEs, you still have learnt, you've gone through an education system from A plus to 16 years old, you have learned stuff, you have got information, and you've learned just fundamentally how to be a good human being and function in society. So you have learned, it's just you've not met this expectation box that was set by goodness who, a bunch of people around
in the school board district.
Yeah, so certainly when we do our PGA, at the end of the day when you do your PGA, you get a thing that says passed, that's it. So whether you were student of the year or you've just scraped by, you both have the same certificate that says pass. So it's irrelevant, and I think that's kind of a good way of doing it. And it's the same for Leadbetter thing. Once you've done it, you've got your certificate that says well done, you've completed the certification. There's no like, you're better than this coach here, you've got more knowledge than this. That's not what it was about. It was about trying to find yourself as a coach and what you can draw from to make yourself better, to therefore make your lessons better, or to make the experience better, which I think is really constructive. I think it's good.
Yeah,
100%. Sorry, talking, ranting.
I was going to ask, did you have any help with your PGA? Just remind you that we've got 7 minutes left.
Okay.
So it's actually a funny story. So I actually applied for my PGA probably coming up to 7-8 years ago right now, and they sent me my letter back saying not accepted because of my grades.
Oh yeah.
And that annihilated me. I'd done a year of being an assistant in Watford.
You had to get like six C's or above, didn't you, or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. So then I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and redo it and see how I get on. Anyway, again, it just wasn't happening. I think I'd done better in like one subject, which was still not good enough. So I thought, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to send it off. I even done a sports science national diploma because I thought, that might be enough to cover me. So I done 2 years of that and got my letter back. Boom.
Accepted?
No.
Oh, so you've done you've done a year sort of like working behind in the pro shop. And then you've done another 2 years trying to get some more grades. So trying to get get on board with it, and still they didn't apply. So what have you done then after that?
So then I was like, now what do I do? So again, I went and played for another year, and then unfortunately I had a really big hand injury. So I got like a plate in my hand, like 6 screws. So that wasn't great. And while this was healing, I was just doing some research on the laptop and done some research into Leadbetter. And then that was it. Then that's when I got a message from Leadbetter to say, look, come out to Champions Gate, do the certification for 18 months, and let's see how we get on. And that was just like, that's brilliant. I was 20 at the time, and obviously I was still living at home with my parents, and this opportunity arose, and I have to take it. You know, I can't sit around waiting for something that.
So it's kind of done you a favour, really. The PJ gone like, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for them,
yeah, you would
rejected me. Yeah, it like I wouldn't be sitting here now. I wouldn't have, you know, the knowledge of working personally with David and the other great coaches that are there.
Yeah,
you know, that was just the best experience of my life. And for me to, you know, jump on a plane when I'm 20, go live out there, had to do all my own stuff, you know, social security, like there's so much stuff.
Living the dream.
Yeah, literally. Like, but there's so much other little niggly things that I had to accomplish and I had to achieve that made me proud of who I am.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I finally got a chance to speak to David, and he's by far the nicest guy, and he will give you the time of as much as you want, and he will give you the best information. Like, and that's not just because I'm Leadbetter Certified or whatever. Like, even if I wasn't, he is such a nice guy, and I can't talk more highly of him.
So have you both got his name numbers in your phone?
I have.
Yeah, brilliant.
No, not on that basis yet. Although there was a funny story about me and David like 6 years ago. I once emailed him on the off chance he tried to meet him, and I never had a reply. And then I was fortunate to win a coaching award a few weeks ago for the Leadbetter Kids stuff. And thanks. I swear we're not endorsed or sponsored by Leadbetter throughout this podcast.
I know.
And he presented the award, and I called him out on it. I was like, why didn't you email me back? But he just took it as a really good joke. So yeah, I can vouch. He's definitely awesome.
Yeah, he's super chilled, and just like when I was watching him coach, you know, I was watching him coach PGA Tour players, LPGA Tour players, and you watch him coach and you see him analyze it. You watch David, you don't even watch the player, but you see David look at his swing, and you can tell everything's moving in his brain to analyze this player. He's just such an intelligent guy, and his philosophy is superb. And yeah, I even asked him a question on the range. I was like, look, you know, I find it hard to get the information across, you know, what ways are there to figure out how someone learns? Because again, being dyslexic, that's important to me, you know. And he was like, there's visual, feel, and like auditory, you know. And he explained to me every situation of how to do it, and that made me 100% a better coach today.
Brilliant. So what are your strengths? We always want to finish on with this, don't we? We've got like two and a half minutes. What do you think your strengths are, being dyslexic, and what is that given you, and what's your superpower? That's it. What's your superpower? When
honestly, communication. Seriously, like communication really is my superpower. You know, I can walk up to anyone and have a conversation, and I can walk up to anyone if they're feeling sad or unhappy, you know. I've got the ability to make them feel better. You know, I've got the ability to see something different to how everyone else sees something, because I've gone through something that not a lot of people go through.
Awesome.
That's brilliant.
Love that. Definitely can relate to that one. So thank you so much, Craig, for taking the time to talk about it. It's been very good. I want to know more about David. But thank you very much. Obviously, guys at home, if you're watching and this story relates to you and you want to get in touch with any of us and maybe join us on the podcast any week, we are here. But thank you very much, Craig, and obviously Neil, thank you as well.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Perfect.